Michael Symanski. How are you, sir? Good to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Are you ready for some questions?
Let's have them.
Okay, here we go. First person up. Come on up, Martin.
Hello, Mike. General Symanski. Thank you for sharing with us. I could have sat here for another hour or so. That was incredible. You started to share, to continue the conversation about your mentors. And I just have a question as far as what type of mentors have been important in your life, and what did you learn from them, and how did you apply their wisdom?
That's a fair question. We asked the same question of the folks in our leadership programs. Who were the people who had a great influence upon you? And almost to a person, they say a parent. Father, mother, that's almost always right up front. And I would have to say the same is true. And I've run into other people too who have had remarkable abilities, or for that matter, remarkable weaknesses that either I wanted to emulate or I wanted to make sure I did not do. And the first battalion commander I had was a very direct, gruff type of guy, and he had little nuggets of information that did influence the way that I thought about things, with expansion, of course, over time. And through both my business career and the military career, I've run into those people. Some business leaders I have met were just, awesome in the way that they were able to run their businesses, to manage their products, and do great, great things. And then there were some people that I thought were really out of place. And as I mentioned before, if one is an entrepreneur and you start your business, then there will come a time when you will be out of place, almost undoubtedly. And then you should voluntarily be replaced by somebody. If I was a search committee for a board of directors and I found the right kind of person, I would say, you're going to have this job for about 4 years. And you're going to change conditions, and those new conditions will not be appropriate. So I've run into those kinds of people who had that kind of expansive thought at every level over the last many, many years. There are too many to really specifically say, but there were people I thought who could reach out and control the future. Over.
I did. Over. Thank you. Thanks again for sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Martin. If you could say your name, that would be great. Step right up.
My name is Benny Lee. I'm honored to be here and listen to your great speech. My question is, in my lifetime, I used several consultants. Then the people told me the consultant don't tell you already knows. Yeah. But I don't know how effective it is on me. So my question is, how do you judge the successful and not successful for your coaching? And what is your successful rate?
Well, the success rate so far, the feedback that I have gotten, especially from the industrial side, where the supervisor, the boss, if you will, of the person that I am coaching, is a part of the program. They've all said afterwards, this person has changed noticeably. Whatever they had that we wanted to correct, if you want to put it that way, for their executive level, they have done. They are, you name it, whatever the problem was. They are a better communicator. They don't keep rehashing their war stories of how this job was done when they were over here in this other branch. They have stopped doing that. They have started to include their team members in decision making, in the process at least. They have stopped being so directive and have started to ask questions more than just dictate. They have begun to listen instead of talking over other people, which is a very, very common trait, and one which I must say I have licked myself, to listen until the other person has finished. And when their supervisor says, that is successful, that has worked, I can see the change, then I know that that has worked. And that is most obvious in the industrial setting where I have coached.
And in most of them, I say that the success rate is very high. Successful rate is
Yes.
very high.
I do have to admit, my success rate is very high.
And do we have to have the period to judge? If I just hire you for 1 month, maybe not effective, you may have some
I would say
time.
6 months to a
6
year,
months. I see.
mainly because a person who is moving into a position of higher authority and responsibility is usually very, very busy. Often they're on the road. So I have to look for opportunities to talk to this person, let's say in 2-hour increments, ideally not in the office, maybe at a Panera or some other venue where we can talk quietly without distraction. But I always run on their schedule. If I'm coaching you, Benny, when will you be available? When will you have 2 hours? And then as we get through this program, I'm going to say, okay, you've got a contract. Here are the things you want to accomplish. Now, let's go ask people who can observe any of these points if you have accomplished that.
I see.
And I'll
Okay.
go back and see. And it could take 6 months to a year.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Looks like we have another question. Come on down. If you can introduce yourself.
Thanks. I'm Bud Nickel. My question for you, Michael, is you've done quite a bit in both the military, private sector. So my real question for you is, having worked in both those arenas myself,
Yeah.
zero defect mentality.
Ah.
What have you done that has helped defeat that? And when you're coaching executives or the transitioning managers to executives, how do you help them see outside that arena?
You're right, Bud. That is extremely common in hierarchies that have a reputation or a culture of being very directive, the military being an obvious one. And it is when the subject, the person, the intervening commander says, I am going to be rated performance-wise by my senior, again, I don't like to call them superiors, based on all of these successes. And he's a real hard-driving guy. Therefore, I cannot fail. The North Korean Army, they're notorious for running like this. You fail, I'm going to shoot you. So there's very few recorded failures. But at any rate, I mentioned before the attitude of, okay, you're going to work for me, Bud, and I'll tell you this, I'm going to give you the authority and the assignment and all the resources I can for you to be a success as my subordinate. And I'm going to trust you to do this. And oh, by the way, one of your important functions is to save me from myself. So if you see me about to make a great error, I want you to be empowered enough to speak up. But at any rate, if anything goes wrong, I want you to know that I am more interested in how you're fixing that than I am in attaching blame. So if the screw up happens, you come to me, say, boss, this fell apart. Here's a reason. Here's how I'm going to fix it. Here's what I need from you, boss, to get it fixed. And I'm going to bring it back better than it was before, one would hope. And if you do that, Bud, you will get rewards and praise and everything I can give you. And that will break that zero defect mentality.
Okay, great. Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
Follow up. Okay. In Yours My World, there's a great analogy called sergeant's business.
Yeah.
And I loved it, used it all through my career. What I really would like to hear is some more of how you deal with that in the private sector, because you talked about the 360 assessment.
Yes.
And I heard quite a bit about, your coaching was successful when the subject's, his, rating senior or his boss says, yes, I've seen that. Can you give us some of your insight about how to tap into those talents at the levels below where you're coaching?
Sergeant's business, for those of you who have not worked with sergeants, I would define it this way. If I am the officer in command of the company, and this is where you typically see sergeant's business, I'm going to say, Sergeant, I want you to prepare the soldiers individually. I want you to train them. I want you to make sure that they are equipped. I want you to make sure that they are in the right mental attitude. I want you to make sure they are healthy. And the equipment, I want you to make sure that those pieces of equipment are maintained in a way that they are fully mission capable all the time. Because I'm going to give you a time and a place that I want all of that to come together, and I will give an order for an operation, and those individuals and that equipment will be able to execute it. To me, that's sergeant's business. And I will let the sergeant do what he's got to do, under my supervision, of course, my monitoring. That is trust. That is trust in the NCO, in this case, the non-commissioned officer, to do those things. His realm is at that level, and I will let him do that. One of the articles I wrote was the command philosophy of Private Mulvaney. And this comes from a Rudyard Kipling story from the British Army in India around 1900. Private Mulvaney had been a private off and on for 20 years in the British Army. His particular job was to train incoming recruits. And he would tell those recruits, there are 4 things only you have to remember. Fear God, honor the Queen, shoot straight, keep clean. And if you remember those 4 things and expand upon each one, that pretty much covers it. Keep clean, stay healthy, stay fit, stay ready, fit to fight, as we would say. Fear God, have that inner purpose, have that core, have those values that make you have the courage to take the risk that this job requires. Honor the Queen, have faith in the government that we have all signed up in the military sense to support. If you're going to work for this company deserves your support, and you should be an enthusiastic supporter of our values. Shoot straight, be technically competent, be able to operate your equipment, and operate in the field as a soldier as you should. If you're a machine operator, you should know that. Keep clean. I mentioned before, you should be physically ready to do this job. And if you let people do that, trust them and empower them, they will rise to almost every occasion.
Mm-hmm. Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Okay. I think that wraps up this Q&A session with Executive Summit. How was that, Michael?
I think we've squashed every question.
I think we did. We solved the world's problems today from a number of levels. Let's give a round of applause one more time for Michael Symanski. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And with that, we will see you next time. Thanks so much.